Welcome to Three Mystics at a Round Table. Here we are again with Gary Langley, Sally Taylor, and Susan Sanderford. And today's topic is Life is But a Dream. Now, for me, I know that sort of this whole concept that life being a dream, of course, there's the nursery song, Life is But a Row, Row, Row Your Boat, Life is But a Dream. I don't know the background of that. But I know that the Seth Materials, if anybody out there is familiar with the Seth Materials, she was a trance channel, I believe, back in the 60s. And she was the one that brought up the concept of life being a dream um, way back then, you know what I mean? Which I think got a lot of people started. I never really read or followed the Seth Materials, but I was aware that life being a dream. And it kind of makes sense. I don't know what you guys think, but if we are pure consciousness, having different experiences, certainly life could be a dream. And we take it way too seriously down here. If the soul exists after life and after we die and we move on, and these are just experiences, just like in dreams, would it be possible that if you've ever had a really bad dream and you woke up and you go, oh, that was only a dream, does that happen when we die? Any thoughts on that?
Well, that's what they say on the other side is you wake up and go, oh, that was just that experience. And it was a flash in the pan, so to speak. Um, and I would also comment on reality is not the way we see it. I mean, we are creating as a consensus the reality we're living in. But you take a table and really it's more empty space than it is solid object. It's bunch, but we all have a consensus belief that it's a table. And so we agree upon that. And so in that sense, yes, it is a dream, but it's a very real experience. And that's all we ever take away is the experience. So,
From the dream? Yeah. Go ahead, Sally.
Yeah, I agree with Gary. I think the important part for me that he just stated was the fact that it is a consensus. Some people use the term consensus reality, and so for if we want to say life is but a dream, you do have to say, well, how many people are dreaming this dream? Right? I give Gary full credit for being one of the dreamers with me in the dream. I don't think that I've just made him up out of my own conscious, creation, right? Gary is still a conscious, individuated piece of source himself, as are you, Susan. So it does seem to be that there is an agreement that we come and we create together. The question is then, how lucid are you in the dream?
yes.
Fair enough. And that's a really good question. How aware, and I'm assuming you mean how aware are people of where they actually came from and that they came into the dream to have different experiences, but are not aware of where they came from, you know?
Yes.
And this goes back to the whole thought of we take it so seriously down here because we don't know that. We don't know that we're, like you said, Sally, a piece of source that's come into the material world to experience, to learn and grow, and for source itself to experience the material world through us as well, you know. And to me, it gives a lot of comfort to realize the things we take so seriously sometimes and get all caught up in, if we can just stop and breathe and say, maybe this is just something I'm making up in my head. Maybe this is just a dream, you know, which takes me back to the little nursery song, you know, row, row, row your boat, life is but a dream. I think the mystics and in the past recognized that that's
Yeah.
a dream.
Yeah. And whoever wrote that song might have been a mystic.
That's true, very much, But I think the key here is that learning that there is an afterlife, and it is waking up from the, oh, that was just a dream, that wasn't real, is where the key is to realize there's a whole nother level of consciousness once you leave the body.
Yeah.
And I
Can
would
I throw a
also
little oh, so I'm sorry, Gary, go ahead.
I would also posit that I just went right out of my head. So edit point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. Well, then let me go ahead and posit something else to maybe stretch this a little further. Of course, a lot of people talk about feeling like they've gone home after this life, right? Or sometimes have this underlying, wish to go home. But what is the possibility that our next experience after this physical one is also another consensus reality?
Oh, sure.
Right? And that we create worlds to experience further in the next experience. So, a lot of people think in terms of heaven or the Summerlands, and I think all of these sort of ideas about what can be experienced afterward have a lot of validity to them, but they still are consensus realities that we can expand further out from.
Oh, yeah. And I would add to that in my research, there are many consensus realities on the other side. So if you're a strict religionist, you may find yourself among your kind until you outgrow that stage and move on to a broader perspective. So yes, I would agree with you. The astral realms are very much consensus realities, um, and are once again created by en masse by everyone within that consensus. At least that's what the research shows, and the communications from the other side.
So then, have you ever had dreams then of those aspects of people who are in the spirit world living in a different construct reality of what their belief system is? I mean, I can share a few that I've had long time ago. Like we had a lady that went to our church, and she was very, very involved in our church, and very into that belief system. And I dreamt about her one time, and she literally was in what I call brethren heaven. You know what I mean? With all the people that believed the way that she believed, and you're going, okay, well, isn't that nice? You know what I mean? And I've even dreamt of people in what I call gay heaven, because they had a belief system about that, and they had gone into that reality. And I thought, well, isn't that
Yeah.
interesting? And one more dream, and then Sally, you can go. Just the other day, I dreamt of my good friend Randy, who passed away about 6 months ago, and he was an artist. And in the dream, he was sitting at the desk building a sculpture out of wood and metal. And of course, he turned around and looked at me. And of course, he was in his 30s, and we made eye contact. And I knew that was a way of letting me know. But I also felt there was a message in the dream for me as well in what he was doing, and came back in that way. But he continued his art because he loved art in the spirit realm, in the spirit world.
Sure.
Yeah. I fully hope to continue to create art and other things when I get there as well. But to have an almost identical experience that you've had, Susan, when my mother-in-law passed away in the last couple of years, she was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She was Mormon, and when I first sort of felt connected to her again after her passing, she was in Mormon heaven. I mean, she just was. And she was very self-satisfied about that fact. She's like, look, we were right, right? She was very happy, just enjoying the afterlife as you would hope she would. but also very, very convinced in the truth of her belief system at that stage. I can't find her there anymore. She has moved out of that now.
Sure.
And she seems to be really in an exploratory stage for what I think of as time at this time, right? Uh, so it was really an unusual experience for me because I've left religion behind, but she definitely seemed to be very happy in the consensus structure that she found herself in
For a
after she
time,
transitioned. Yeah.
for a time. And
For a
then
time, for a time.
and
And
then
she didn't stay. Right. She didn't seem to stay there.
because I think we make a distinction, or I'd like to make a distinction. The astral realms are not really heaven. I mean, heaven would be the higher realms, and I hesitate to give them numbers, but where everything is light and where you're closer to source. Those are the heavenly realms. Most people don't generally transition directly to that. There is growth that takes place on the other side too. And I'm literally speaking from the research I've done. I can't say that I know it for a fact, but it seems right. It feels right. So,
So you're following your intuition, and maybe the levels, not want to use the word levels, more the word frequency. It's a
right, correct.
frequency.
Yeah,
Right.
language falls short when we're describing this because we're describing things that are not in 3D reality. So,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. So as you guys were talking, one of the things that came up for me is perhaps we're living in dream bubbles down here. So let's go back to this whole idea of religion and a belief system, and it has its own frequency of belief. And then when you pass over, if you're very staunch or strong in that belief, frequency attracts frequency, resonance attracts resonance. So it's just like you, Sally, and Gary finding each other as friends and doing this work together is because of a resonance, a frequency resonance of where you are and we're growing and that kind of thing, and what your heart's desire is to create and being able to come together and create together. And this sort of hit me, this whole idea that perhaps there's dream bubbles down here, frequency fields or bubbles, in that I had a dream about an old boyfriend back when I was in Bible college, and sort of had an idea, which takes us into the whole dreams even being teachers or showing you things that you couldn't see when you're here. But I thought, oh, it'd be interesting to look him up. And I found him on YouTube, and he was still a preacher and still in the whole brethren bubble. And I could feel the frequency of it, of the belief system. It was the first time you could feel this bubble of frequency that people were so married to that they couldn't look beyond it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it makes you
And I
wonder how many dream bubbles are going on, in this reality, or if it's
Yeah,
a
well, I
dream.
think that it's exactly why people experience what they expect when they do transition, right?
Mhm.
If you expect you're going to hell, you might have, at least for a period of time, a hellish experience, right? You're not trapped there, you're not stuck there. And you just have to release it, right? Release the belief, release the frequency of that experience. Sometimes it's an act of surrender. Sometimes it's an act of, like in the case of my mother-in-law, I will say maybe curiosity that helped her to progress, outside of the Mormon heaven that she expected. So there's all kinds of things that sort of put us in place, whether it's here in this world, right? We end up being surrounded by those that we have resonance with, and the same is true once we leave the physical. That
Sure.
doesn't change.
I would concur. Yeah.
So it's like a exploration of consciousness that's going on in many different facets of where our consciousness is. So we all chose to come in, and I call it the slow path in coming into physical body, and the learning is difficult and hard and slow and struggle, to figure it out, and you know how to shift it, and those kind of things. And um, that's kind of the slow fact. But once we pass over, I think the creation or the learning is a lot faster or a lot easier. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, certainly there is Mormon heaven and Brethren heaven and different belief system heaven, but I I'm curious as to how it works. Of like your grandmother, um, who decided one day, maybe I don't have to believe this way anymore.
Hmm. And you said something, Susan, that's really critical, and most people don't realize the greater reality. And we've all heard the phrase, wake up within the dream.
Mhm.
Well, if you wake up within the dream, that means you start to investigate, you start to find out, oh, there is this greater reality. And that heavily influences your experiences here because you begin to realize, wait a minute, I'm creating my reality. If I'm in a negative space, I'm bringing more negativity to myself. If I'm positive and affirmative and saying all will be well, ultimately it is. So, I mean, there's work to be done to make that happen here, of course. There are the physical things we have to do, but it changes your perspective dynamically when you realize the greater reality exists and that everything is okay. So,
And that's an important point. Everything is okay,
mhm.
and the waking up from the dream and going, oh, that was just a dream. Thank God.
Yeah,
Especially if you're living a life that is very difficult, whether there's been abuse or
sure.
whatever, and that you've not been able to work your way out of. Um, I think that that's really interesting. Were you going to say something, Sally?
Well, I was just thinking as you were talking about the speed of learning that we experience and whether or not it's faster here or faster there. I kind of think the reason, at least from that broader perspective, that we come into the physical is because we actually learn faster here, because
Ah,
we're learning through contrast that doesn't necessarily exist, um, you know, outside of the physical.
I would
So
agree
we
with that.
experience the struggle, we experience the hardships, we experience the light and the dark and the inconsistencies. And that's where the greatest experience comes. And then with experience comes learning.
And could that be because we forgot it was a dream? We
Yeah,
came in with forgetfulness, that we didn't
absolutely.
know who we are or where we came from, or
And
yeah, go ahead.
if we didn't come in with forgetfulness, it would blow the whole game
Hmm.
because but we can rediscover while we're here. And that was the point I was trying to make is that once we rediscover that for ourselves, and nobody can give it to you, you can hear people talk about it forever and don't always believe what everyone says, find out. Um, but yes, the potential to wake up within the dream, that to me is um, very crucial because we're catapulting ourselves into a whole new vibration when we do that. So,
Right. Not too, I would say within this past year, I had this really kind of fascinating dream. And this takes us into dreaming within the dream. What was the name of that movie where they dreamt and moved into another level and kept dropping down into dream scenarios? I forgot the name of it. It was pretty fascinating. Had Matt Damon in it, I think. And they were doing that as science, to go change someone's perspective to not do something that they were going to do. I don't know if you remember that dream, but they collapsed in the dream and the dream and the dream and the dream. And you wonder, is there not some reality to that? Do you know what I mean? Of how many dreams are we actually in? How have we spiraled down from divine source? And how many different dreams have we lived that, are basically all happening at once, that there's not linear time. But the dream that I had about, if anybody thinks of that movie, you know what which movie I'm talking about. I just can't remember the name. Convergence, or I think it started with a C or something like that. I can't remember, but it was a great movie. And it really made you think, oh, wow, how deep into consciousness have we gone, or away from source have we gone in the dream? But the dream that I had, I was in like a big warehouse room, and it was carnival games, and pinball machine games. And there was a whole bunch of people in this room. We were all playing these games, but we were stuck in this room that we couldn't get out of. And then as a group, we figured something out, and we were let out of the game. And we were so excited, and we came out of this warehouse room, walking down the hall, and we thought, oh, finally we've escaped this game room, and we're all lined up, and the guy says, yeah, we're going to let you out. And so then they let us into another room, and all of a sudden the door locked, and we were in a whole nother game.
I was just going to say, you were released from the game into
to go into another game. Yeah.
Right. Which is why I think there are these layers of consensus realities. It's also like the movie The Matrix, right? Mm-hmm. You almost described the structure of that movie as well, in that ultimately, the main character gets out of the matrix that he's, held in, to find that he's in another matrix. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of times our art, our movies, those kinds of things do reflect to us little bits and pieces of the reality, of things, of our experience. So yeah, I think it's absolutely likely that we will experience another matrix beyond this one, but it will be for another type of experience, for another type of growth, and we'll eventually move beyond that one into another, until I assume at one point we merge back completely with the, all that is. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, right. Cool. So then the question is the way out of the dream by not resisting the dream?
Mm-hmm. Part of it, I
by
would say.
embracing it to see what it has to teach you. And once you learn that, you move into the next opportunity for growth.
Mm-hmm. And
enjoy the narrative.
And the opportunities get better as you grow.
Right.
And you grow in understanding of, okay, I'm playing this role, but I know the greater reality. And then you begin to realize, well, I'm really creating my circumstances. So let's create differently. Let's play with that, see where it leads us. So,
right. Well, I mean, in our own dreams, when we dream at night, we're creating that reality. We're drawing to us the dream symbols, the archetypes that are teaching us to work through living in the dream, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And all of those archetypes have something to tell us, and even like in my dream with my friend Randy that just happened the other night, where he came to visit, but he was building a sculpture of metal and wood, and it was about me learning. And he was asking, how do I bond these two together? And the thing I had been working on was, how do you bond someone who is metal, who they see the world as metal, and another person sees the world as wood? Can those come together to create something beautiful without it being resistance, which isn't that like what the world is right now? Two different realities working at the same time, two different belief systems or more than two belief systems, and they're all at war with each other. But how do we bring the two belief systems to make something beautiful instead of this belief system, the metal's got to go away, it can only be wood? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and I think sometimes as we as in this dream, we're, because it is so separate right now, it's like we just want third dimension to go away. And maybe that's the wrong approach. How do we bond the two so that they work beautifully together? Because everybody's going to be in different places in their journey.
And how do we elevate the third dimension to a higher frequency?
Mm-hmm. Or
You
do
know?
we need to? That really, when you think about it, everybody's where they are. And maybe it's love.
Mm-hmm.
Love and acceptance instead of hate and wanting them to change, or wanting, them wanting us to change, or maybe it's love and non-judgment, allowing it to third dimension to be okay,
Right.
and holding a higher frequency for it so that they have a mirror of what they can find within themselves.
Yeah.
And
The only
isn't that
person you
what
can change
Yeshua
is
did?
yourself. Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that what Yeshua did? He loved the publicans and tax collectors and the broken people and right now it's just everybody seems to just like everything. I mean, boy, politics is probably one of the major ones of where the divide is. And maybe if we quit playing that game and just loved each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of judging.
Yeah.
I agree.
So maybe the dreams are, in my dream, how do we bond metal and wood to make something beautiful? And I thought it was such a powerful dream of seeing them as inclusive, not as separate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I wonder, this is just a thought. You can take this or leave this, but because I think about symbolism all the time. Maybe you don't bond metal and wood. Maybe you let metal be metal and you let wood be wood, and they both have their own strengths,
Right.
and that
They
they
can
can
exist
lean on each
together.
other. They can exist together. But if you try to bond them, one gets burned, one, destroys the other in reality.
Mhm.
So yeah, one melts, one burns,
Well, maybe you
So
just piece them together without a bonding and
yeah,
allow them to be okay to create something.
yeah,
And maybe
yeah,
it's beautiful all along. We're just seeing it as bad, and maybe it's been beautiful all along.
yeah,
Maybe the spark
yeah.
of the divinity has been in each.
Right. And we do come here for the contrast. If
Mhm.
we're all the same,
Mhm.
where's the contrast?
Right.
Where's the experience? Where's the learning?
Right.
And so, but basically, like you said, loving each other for what we are and as we are, I think is the key. And letting people be in the place that they are in, knowing that's part of their journey and that it's part of their expansion. And if you don't resonate with it, then you move on.
We want.
Yeah, but we have a tendency to want to judge somebody like that. And that was probably one of my biggest lessons in life, was to see people where they are, and I don't have to agree with it, but I don't also have to judge it, because that's the lesson they need to go through. So I don't have to say, well, that person's an idiot because they don't see this. Um, but there was a time where I thought more that way, and had to grow beyond it. But it was very freeing to do so.
So letting go of the judgment Um,
Correct, which is part of love.
right, right. And in some ways, it's the opposite of love. Judgment is lack of
No,
love.
no, I meant the letting go of it is
Yeah, yeah,
part of
yeah,
love. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And it's hard to do in this reality sometimes, you
can
know.
be.
Sure.
Yes.
Well, we also want to make sure we have discernment, right? And
Right.
discernment is not the same as judgment.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Or
And so it's just
observation. Uh,
yes.
you're observing, and I think where it's judgment is when it triggers you,
Hmm.
triggered about what is happening, and you get lost in the trigger. Then that is the judgment. And then what I've learned is usually what you're judging is an aspect or a mirror of yourself that you
Exactly.
have not come to peace with or loved within yourself.
Exactly.
You know,
Always points back to you.
always, always, because there's only one of us here.
That's
And
right.
all of life is a mirror. Life is but a dream. Well, what if life is but a mirror? We're only dreaming and drawing into ourselves the aspects that either we need to look at within ourselves that we've not been willing to see. So, our souls, and I really think our higher selves or our oversouls bring that experience right into our face, to trigger us to look within to see, okay, what needs to be shifted? What am I not loving within me? What am I not loving within me? And that's a hard lesson for people because it's so easy to want to look outward and fix the outward and not the inward.
Starts within.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
Which,
something I wanted to say about what we were talking about earlier about consensus reality, oftentimes religious beliefs, those aren't bad in and of
no,
themselves. I want to say that they are stepping stones to greater understanding, because I don't want to give the impression that we're negating the benefits of certain religions in their approach. Um, Personally, I don't feel much need for them at this point. I mean, I feel like I have that direct connection. I don't need a go-between to talk to the universe, the creator, whatever you want to name you want to give it. Um, but yeah, that's all I have to say about it, I guess.
and I'm glad you brought that up because that's very true because I wouldn't have changed the way I grew up for
Right.
anything. And mainly because it gave me a love or a seeking for the divine. It was a safe environment. Um, and in many ways, religion is what I call scaffolding because these little souls, we as souls, we come into this planet, and a lot of us are empaths, and it's hard down here, and we need to feel safe in an environment that's very, very harsh, especially energetically. And so the scaffolding or the belief systems have a role and have a place. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Gary, because it does very much so. So I wouldn't change that in my life forever. But like your grandmother, Sally, it's like, oh, maybe I don't need this anymore. Maybe it isn't serving me, the way I thought it isn't. I didn't find that peace within it. And so let me look outside of that.
Yeah.
That dream bubble.
And we can do that while we're still here
Mm-hmm.
in the physical. And I think it's imperative if we have the desire and the drive to find out, to do that while we're here. It will save us a lot of time,
Mm-hmm.
time being a relative term, when we get to, the other side. Um, if we've already accomplished that while we're in the physical.
Right. Right. So life is a dream. If we could see life as a dream, maybe it would go a little bit easier. Maybe we wouldn't be so hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a dream, but as Gary and I often say, it's a very real experience.
Mm-hmm.
So the impact is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
But realizing that the impact lessens a little bit when you realize, okay, it's a dream. How do I want to navigate from here? So how do I want to navigate through this very real experience I'm having?
Which
So
which goes back to what Sally said. Are we lucid in the dream? Are we creating the dream at this point, or are we allowing the dream to happen to us? Are we just going along with the flow of what's happening in the dream, or are we saying, oh, wait, this is a dream and I'm creating it in my life? I can choose differently in the dream.
yeah,
I don't
not
have to
not
be stuck in the dream I've created of, in a miserable marriage, or losing your job and financial struggles. How do I dig myself out of the dream I've created for, which then
well,
goes into what needs to shift in me so that I see the world that I am the creator, that I am not a victim of this world.
and that's the end of sleepwalking because, as you mentioned, so many people sleepwalk their way through life.
Mhm.
They're only focused on the physical and on accumulating. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with accumulating and having a nice home but it's not the importance that we give to it oftentimes. So,
Right, right, right. So I guess in reality, the dream is our teacher.
hmm
It's teaching us being in the dream. So, like for you, Sally, being in the Mormon faith, it was your teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I feel exactly the way about my childhood as you described about yours.
Mhm,
Exactly.
mhm.
I wouldn't give it up for anything. And I had spiritual experiences then as well, right? That I described them in the context that I had at the time. And now my spiritual experiences that I describe in the context that I have right now. I'm sure that context is going to change. And at some point I will describe my new experiences in the context that I have at that time.
and then ultimately you'll probably just go silent.
Probably. I'll just sit back and watch it all go by. Row, row, row my boat gently down the stream. That's the
There you
key.
go.
Do it
Yeah,
gently.
yes,
Uh, merrily, merrily, merrily.
that's right.
Life is
Instead of
good.
the storm coming and the raging river, you do it gently and enjoy the ride. And perhaps that's the whole point of the dream, is because I've had a lot of dreams I've really enjoyed, you know.
Yeah.
It's rare that I have a nightmare. There are dreams where I do wake up and say, "Oh, I'm glad that was a dream," you know,
Yes.
because it was creating such inner conflict, in the dream. And it's like, oh, thank God that was a dream. And usually it's about my conflicting dream is always about I'm trying to get on a plane and I'm not packed and everybody else is there and I can't find my passport and I'm late and I need to take a shower and then I can't get there and I never resolved I missed the plane,
Yep.
or I missed the train, or that kind of thing. And that's kind of one of my dreams that often comes up a lot, of trying to figure out how to get home is
Right.
basically it. How do I get home? I went somewhere and how do I get home? And maybe that's what life is about. We went somewhere to experience something, whether it's another country or another retreat or visiting someone, and you can't find your way back home and you don't have a way to communicate back to home, because usually I can't find my phone, or I don't remember the number I need to call, or in the dream of how do I get home? Oh, am I going to have to walk? And I'm seeing a map in my head of coming from Chicago down south and trying to figure out, well, if I go this way and that way, and trying to figure out how to get home, you know.
Well, aren't we all?
Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
Aren't we all? Reminds me of I don't know why, but I'll just throw this in. There was a really great little cartoon of a woman who had just transitioned and her guide walking out of a movie theater, and it said, "Your Life Review." And she said, "I expected more twists and turns. Mostly it was just me looking for my phone."
Funny. And isn't that the truth? Well,
Yeah.
and this really goes into dream bubble after dream bubble, because if there is a Baptist heaven and there is a Brethren heaven and there is a Mormon heaven, and there's different, there's probably a biker heaven too,
Oh, sure.
a consensus kind of thing. Do we just go into another dream bubble like your grandmother who decides, I don't want to be in this dream bubble anymore. Let's go explore beyond it.
Hmm.
And how fascinating is it to think that there's so many dream bubbles we can explore and choose which ones we want to explore. And it was not as much about learning, but as the excitement of seeing and experiencing different aspects of the divine in its many different ways of seeing itself, if that makes sense.
Yes, and that's true for here as well as there.
Mm-hmm.
I want to stress that point because the more work we can accomplish in this field of opposites, the third dimensional reality, the more that we can develop our awareness here. It's like taking a giant leap that, you know, because of the resistance here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is resistance to change. We are influenced and conditioned, and to break free of that here is phenomenal. Only a certain number of people actually do that work,
Mm-hmm.
and present company included. So,
Well, we all have our stuff we're still working on.
oh, sure,
We
never
all
end.
have right. Because then, as our good friend Dr. Peeble said, if you figure it all out now, then what are you going to do?
Right.
You know. But this really goes back to the concept that what if it's all about divine source looking through us to experience the world without judgment?
Yeah.
And if that's what it is, we're just little aspects of the divine that spiral down into material world to come to know ourselves through that contrast, Sally, that you mentioned, through the opposite, so that we would know how are we going to know what love is if we don't experience the opposite of that.
Exactly.
So it's
And
choices. Go ahead.
yes. And sometimes the choice might be to come and have the really tough experiences or to be the villain, right? To be the person who creates more contrast. And what does that do for you as a soul if you've chosen to play that role? And what does it do for the people around you that have chosen to, experience you in that way?
Right.
That's why even the people that I might not agree with in a lot of ways, or that I have kind of definitely a clear sort of non-resonance with, I still, when I sort of sit down and think, I have to go, but I still love them for the role that they're willing to play for me and everybody else around them.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at all that I've learned in the process. And I have to love them and be grateful for that.
So, which brings to loving detachment, because often in our dreams, we're either enmeshed in the dream as a person or we're observing the dream.
Mhm.
We're the observer of what's happening in the dream rather than being a participant. And
Right.
in some ways, is that where we're headed, to be the observer of it without judgment and just say, well, is that not fascinating that this is happening? And then others are all enmeshed in it on an emotional level and fighting it and wanting to go instead of just being the observer, because in reality, isn't that what we are when it comes down to it? We're the observer. And we're working our way out of getting enmeshed in the dramas, in the what's happening. I mean, and we've all experienced that, you know, Sally, with you losing your son, you with your house burning down, um, me going through a divorce, you know, we've all been there and we take it so seriously. And then once we get past it, we go, well, that wasn't too bad. Oh, I'm really glad my frequency changed
Right.
Yeah.
because of that experience. I learned something through it,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
which takes us to the dreams. You know, if life is but a dream and then we're the dreaming, we're even, our consciousness is even dreaming in our dreams, which I think play an important role in our journey. For all of you, I mean, Gary, you had a dream that kicked off you looking at life in a different way. With the gal passing away, the little girl passing away, right, in a car accident.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay.
And so
Yes,
that was
that was a turning point. So,
that a dream was a turning point,
mhm. It
right?
solidified what I had been studying and reading about and
It made it
wanting.
real.
It made it real. It brought it home and it gave me an evidential experience of what I had been absorbing. So that made it a turning point. Yes.
And he was lucid in that dream.
Mhm.
It
Well,
became a reality because it really was a task that he was meant to perform,
Mhm.
right? So, we can talk about, the dreams within the dreams. And if, we go to sleep at night, we have dreams. Really, it's just a little shift in our tuning,
Mhm.
right? And the question is, are you lucid in that little shift in tuning, or are you asleep in that tuning, right? We become lucid in a dream, we suddenly control the dream state, right? You can have out of body experiences by becoming lucid within a dream. But most of us, most of the time, myself included, most of my dreams, I'm just dreaming. I'm not lucid, and I'm not able to control what I'm experiencing. Although certainly I might be playing out some of the day's stress or, whatever, as we do in those states. But it's really just a mirror of what we experience in our
and
waking states here.
yeah,
Are we lucid
right,
while we're
right.
doing it?
Mhm.
That's it. To
You know,
be lucid in life. Yeah.
yeah, and that's really interesting, Gary, because in reality, the same thing happened to me. Even though Milt and I were talking about, Milt was telling me about his wife, Mary Jane, dying and him going to mediums and things like that, it put the question into my head, oh, I wonder how my grandfather was doing. And that night, I had a lucid dream of walking into a morgue. This was my first experience of communicating with someone on the other side, where I walked into the morgue and there was his old dead body lying there, and he sat up and transformed into this most beautiful looking young man and just smiled at me, which I find is really interesting when you have a dream visit and they look at you and they look young and they just smile at you like, yeah, I'm okay, kind of thing. It's not some long conversation of let's get into it and get into life. No, it's just I'm here kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And even my grandmother. So it was that same experience that you had, Gary, with a dream that made it real. And the same thing
Well,
happened with my grandmother, that made what I knew was possible, then experiencing it
yeah.
to make it
I
real. It takes you down a path you never think you're going to go on.
yeah. I would differentiate and say not so much a dream as an out of body experience, but that's a dream too,
Right, right,
within the greater dream that we're all dreaming. So,
right,
Right.
right. And in reality, I think a lot of them are all out of body experiences. We just don't know it. We're not lucid.
well, fully conscious.
We're fully
Yeah.
conscious, yes, but they seem
Yeah. Well,
real when you dream them,
Yeah.
the word lucid, of course, is based in the word for light. lucid and light are the same root, right? And so light is awareness, light is consciousness,
Hmm.
right? So are you aware? Are you conscious in the experience? And, most of my day, I'm not, I'm going by routine, right? I'm doing the things that are habitually sort of ingrained in me. But every now and then I'll get a moment of clear awareness, of clear lucidity. And the more we can tap into that, um, the greater control we will have to be creative in this experience of contrast. So that's my goal, is to just have those periods of lucidity, awareness, light, consciousness become more and more frequent because, as the nature of the physical world is, we sort of do a lot of it just by rote memorization almost.
And for anyone wondering what we mean by the term lucid dreaming is you're in the dream.
Yeah.
So you are consciously aware, I'm dreaming right now.
Right.
And so I can play with this. So that's different than an average dream, I would say. So I
Right.
just wanted to make that clarification for people that
And
may not
that's
have
why it's
heard
a
the terminology. So,
yes, and that's why it's a jumping off point for people who are interested in out of body experiences, astral projection, that sort of thing,
oh,
is
lucid
because it's
dream.
yeah,
Yeah, so lucid dream can lead you into a full
yes,
out of body experience. So, and there are
yeah,
techniques to when you realize you're lucid dreaming, like focus on your hands or the ground, that can precipitate a full out of body experience. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's pretty
I,
fun when you do it. But I think one of the lessons I think out of this whole discussion is the fact that you are the creator of the dream bubble you're living in reality.
Yeah.
And it's not happening to you. It's you're creating it and you just don't know it.
mhm.
Just like a dream, you just don't know that that is your own consciousness creating. And so there's a way out of the dream bubble by loving what you're experiencing until you no longer need it to show you something about your own self or to teach you something,
Very well said.
and I think that's the really power in this discussion, that you are the creator. Everyone who listens to that, you are the creator of the reality you're experiencing.
That's right.
And you can have as many dream bubbles as you want. And if you want a happier dream, then you ask for your inner guidance to move you out into a happier dream.
Mhm.
And the journey of the dream bubbles, it's like I can see these, bubbles of bumping into each other and you can pass through into another bubble in a dream until you're done playing in that frequency field, because it really is all frequency based on what you believe is true or not true, or whether you believe you're a victim or not a victim. And once you start believing you're not a victim of this reality, then you start creating a new reality and a new dream until you're done playing in that.
Oh, victimhood will keep you locked into the reality that you're in. In
Right.
other words, victimhood is just going to keep you in the same place and be self perpetuating. Um, as long as you are expressing that energy, you're just recreating it over and over. It's a
Right.
trap.
Or
Yeah.
fear
Fear?
to
Yes.
leave where you are,
Yeah.
because you don't know what will happen if you step outside of. And I think fear often keeps you in a situation, whether it's fear of not trusting what's next, or so you'll stay in a bad situation out of fear instead of taking a leap of faith and saying, let's go see what happens if I step outside of this safety net I've created for myself.
Right. If you believe something to be true, it's going to be true for you.
Right.
right? If you
Right.
believe you're the victim, you become the victim. If you believe that there's not enough in the world, then you're going to experience lack. If you believe there's nothing but abundance, then you'll experience abundance. So yeah, it's very much a matter of what you believe.
So would you agree that the dream is here to show us that you are the creator? You
Yes.
are creating everything that's happening in your life. And
It's just slowed down in the 3D physical. You know,
Mhm.
we come here because creation does take a little bit longer, maybe a lot longer.
Mhm.
Whereas on the other side, creation's instant. You want to be somewhere, you think of it, and you're there, right?
Right.
And here we have to put a little effort into it.
You
Right.
got to get in the car and drive or take the plane
Yeah,
or, you know,
got to
go
get your
through
intention into gear.
TSA, go
Right.
through TSA and go have all that hassle.
Mm.
So,
All right. Well, this has been a fun discussion and thank you very much.
Yeah.
And everybody, hopefully you'll get something out of it to know that you are the creator of your own reality. And when you start playing and understanding that, that's when the magic starts happening of, oh, this can shift, not just shifting with your own mind, but your higher consciousness, and start learning about why I'm dreaming this dream and am I ready to let go of it. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Gary. This was really fun. And join us next time. We'll see what topic Spirit has for us next. I don't know yet. And certainly, Gary and Sally, if you have a topic you want to delve into, let me know and we'll do it. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye, everyone.